Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video, and today I'm doing a review of Doctor Who Terror of the Autons. First of all, I'll be going over the packaging. You've got the BBC logo there, DVD, Doctor Who, Terror of the Autons. You've got Jon Pertwee's third Doctor, Katie Manning, Roger Delgado's Master, an Auton, Daffodil, PG, the Jon Pertwee years 1970 through to 1974. Then you've got the sort of writer's notes, the disc, and the back you've got the strip of screenshots, as well as the synopsis, special features, and the runtime and other legal gubbins and that. So yeah. Then moving on to what I thought of the story. Honestly, I've always preferred this story over Spearhead from Space, but that's just me. You know, if you prefer, Spearhead from Space and don't like this one as much, totally fine. As well, on a personal level, the first time I watched this was actually on the horror channel, not on DVD, but I loved it then. As well as that, the box set with this and Spearhead from Space, as well as the unit files which came with Android Invasion and the Invasion of the Dinosaurs, or Dinosaurs even. Those two Doctor Who classic box sets were the last two that I most recently got, and also they're the most recent additions to my classic Doctor Who collection thus far, if anyone was wondering. This is it's so weird to think that this story has two firsts, in so much as it's Jon Pertwee, it's the series opener to his second series, so season 8 or series 8 of the classic series. And what is weird is that Katie Manning, it's first time Katie Manning's in Doctor Who and or Joe Grant, likewise with Roger Delgado and the Master, and also the guy who plays Captain Mike Yates, I guess, as well. I don't think he was in any of the previous seasons and that, but yeah, it's kind of odd, because it's just like, thinking about it now, because I can't think of a time that the Jon Pertwee era and or set of stories didn't have these characters. Like, Roger Delgado is phenomenal in this. He gives just this stellar performance and that throughout, this solid, really good performance. And obviously him and Jon Pertwee play off each other so well. Unfortunately, they only have one sort of fairly lengthy-ish scene between each other, face to face, but I guess they were building up to that. I love the fact that they have the time to develop the Master and that, and kind of give him this sort of layer of sort of menace and layer of sort of power and control, and the fact that he has this ability other than, say, regenerate, which I guess it would be implied that he could regenerate like the Doctor, but unlike, say, the Doctor, he has this power to be able to manipulate people and that, and with this sort of hypnotic sort of effect and that, and I really love that. I like the fact that he's kind of like this sort of person who's taking charge of the autons and that. In the previous story with Spearhead from Space, which I haven't reviewed on the channel as of this recording, it was the nesting consciousness. I think having the Master is just as good, if not better, really. Obviously, he was first introduced in this story, and he was introduced by Barry Letts, I think, and Terrence Dicks maybe even came up with the idea. I can't remember which one of the two it was, but either way, one of them brought it up by thinking well, if the Doctor's Sherlock, then who's his Moriarty? And it's a brilliant idea. It's interesting how there's also another Time Lord who doesn't, I don't think, get named, but basically it's interesting because obviously the last time you'll have seen any Time Lords will have been the War Games in terms of the timeline in the TV show anyway. And yeah, it's really weird having this other Time Lord, not the Master, but this other Time Lord, because he's just trying to warn the Doctor about the Master, but then also he's like disappears and then reappears, and then he's like, "Oh yes, goodbye, Doctor," and it's like they balls it up. Like, I'm sure someone behind the scenes really balls that up, but they kept it in, and I just thought that was interesting. All the various ways the autons / Master try and kill the Doctor is really interesting. I love practically most of the cliffhangers in this are quite strong, sort of average to above average in terms of Doctor Who cliffhangers, in my opinion. With the police car and the police, and then them actually being Auton, that was fucking cool. As well as even that skirmish as well in part 2 or 3, and that, in the quarry, and that, as well as the sort of battle scene and fight sort of battle between the unit soldiers and the Autons and that. I quite like that as well. There are quite a few standout, very brutal deaths, in so much as, like, there's one where there's this guy who has, like, this detonator for a bomb, and then I don't think he uses it, but he gets blown up anyway, and then the Doctor's like, "Oh, a pity he's dead," or something to that effect. "Oh, what a shame," and that. But Jo goes, "Oh, what's happened?" And I'm like, there thinking to myself, like, I know Jo Grant's meant to be stupid, but, like, is she really that stupid that she can't even see that? Like, there's blood running down his, like, hand and that. And I'm just, like, there thinking to myself, like, wow, this is really dark. Like, I expect that from, like, Philip Hinchcliffe, sort of, Colin Baker-esque era of the show, but it was very dark. And then the guy just, like, gets chucked off the radio tower and just falls like a load of stories. That was pretty grim and that. The daffodils thing as well, like, that's pretty dark, or, like, pretty intense. Like, the idea that they'd have, like, shoot out, like, a plastic mask and block your nose and mouth and that, and then also dissolve and that, so no one even knew that that's how you actually died. It's pretty, grim. There's a Chucky wannabe sort of doll as well. Spoiler alert, but I will be going over, or spoiling most of the story in that. I do really like this story. It just sort of, it's just a fun, easy watch, and that, and that, I think, I like the characters. It's weird, it feels like, or Russell T Davies stories feel quite a lot like this story. It's weird in so much as they've got quite a bit of, like, sort of backstory with some of the characters, and we're in one of their houses and that, and it was really weird when I first watched this and that, way back when. They also try and bite off more than they can chew in terms of the CSO and all the blue screen visual effects, I think, at times, which is a bit annoying. I am a bit disconcerted at how quick the Master just sort of randomly just decides to, sort of team up with the Doctor after everything, after how many schemes he's tried to have where it involves obviously killing the Doctor. Then he just was like, "Oh yeah, the Nestine will betray me. Oh, okay, I'll team up with you on that, Doctor." I mean, it's okay, I guess. I mean, I kind of get it, because, Robert Holmes has pretty much just, written himself into a corner. It's produced, the producer is obviously Barry Letts, but it's also directed by Barry Letts, because originally that's what he wanted to do, as well as acting, or he did acting for a time, and then he did directing and that. And then, as I say, it's written by Robert Holmes, who is arguably one of the best classic Who writers of all time by a lot of fans. Sort of consensus, I guess. I don't know. John Pertwee, phenomenal sort of performance. Really sort of varied in terms of the story. Anyway, there's almost like a little bit of a precursor to the infamous quote in Robot of, like, him acting out and being like, Jo Grant's like, "Oh, Doctor, stop being childish," and he's like, "What's wrong with being childish? I like being childish," which is like, Tom's like, of course I'm being childish. There's no point in being grown up if I can't be childish sometimes. It's like, like a little bit of a connection there, which I thought was funny. And that, what else? John Pertwee, as I say, is really good in this, and his banter and or back and forth between him and the Brigadier and Nicholas Courtney is amazing, and that just so sad that these people aren't here anymore, and that because they are so good as these characters and that, and I don't know. I think Jo Grant is okay. Katie Manning, I think, does as much as she can do with the script, and that I think for a first outing and a companion introduction, she's actually pretty decent, I guess, because she is so different from the previous companion, and the problem with the previous companion was that she was too much of an equal to the Doctor and too able. It's just a shame that they went a bit too far in the other direction, I think, in my personal opinion, and it varies from story to story as to how Jo Grant is, written and or portrayed, I think, and how much stuff Katie Manning as an actress had to do or got to do even, which is a shame again, and that, but yeah, I think I love the line the Master has of when that one henchman dude's like, but aren't you annoyed the Doctor escaped or whatever? And he's like, oh no, it just prolongs the inevitable, his inevitable demise, and that is always the thrill, or something to that effect. And yeah, it just makes me think of like a cat playing with its dinner with its mouse that it's caught. It's never about actually killing the mouse, in this case the Doctor. It's always about the chase and the thrill of the chase for the Master. It's always about that. It's never actually about the idea of killing him. So yeah, I mean, overall, I'd give Terror of the Autons a 10 out of 10. It's a really good, solid sort of starter for a series, and I think it was a smart decision on whoever's decision it was behind the scenes to have the Autons return, and that give it a bit of a through line between the 7th series and the 8th series, because that there are quite a few different things. Other than the Doctor and the Brigadier, there's a new unit soldier, new companion, new bad guy, and that. So I think it works well having these sort of foot soldiers that are familiar, as well as the Brigadier, and then the Doctor being the same, and that the music, actually the theme for the Master is pretty decent as well, and some of the music works, some of it less so for me. But yeah, as I say, overall, I'd give Terror of the Autons a 10 out of 10. Thanks for watching, comment, rate, and subscribe.